Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Burnley 1, Aston Villa 3. What a splendid afternoon.
Yes, simply lovely, mate. What a day, what a performance. Back-to-back Premier League wins, and all of a sudden the clouds are coming out, the fields are green, the flowers are in bloom, and the world is okay again. The world is okay again. We started off the day with the Cam leaving officially to Sheffield United. That's been in the works, obviously, for a little while. But as soon as the boys came onto that pitch, I saw that all-white away kit. We were looking like prime Galacticos out on Turf Moor. I just knew things are going to be okay.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And what a way for Matty Cash to spend his 100th appearance for Aston Villa, scoring 2 goals. You could tell the confidence was just surging through his veins when I think it was Luca Dean who sunk a cross in, and Cashy decided to try and go for the volley with the left foot. You could tell he was feeling himself. Can't blame him for it because, I mean, there were 2 fantastic goals. And this is like, I guess we kind of touched on it in the preview, mate, with the sort of no need for a meltdown with Olsen, just team sheets in general. Everybody and their nan was going, why are we playing a back 5 against Burnley? Are you guys not paying attention? Unai Emery has deployed Matty Cash in midfield multiple times, and I still saw people even saying that he was playing in wing back. I've got the average positions up right here, mate. We never actually remember to put them in, so I'm gonna dump this in the Google Drive for you, mate, so as we can hopefully remember it, and you shove it over my face. It can go right on my face. You guys can see that Matty Cash is literally in line with Musa Diaby. He is. I mean, you can't even really call him a midfielder in this case. Like, he basically played as a winger. He got so far up and down that right flank, and he did support Ezri if and when needed, but you could see that it was a tilted back 4 with Ezri at right back. Obviously, Dean was pushing high up as well. None of this back 3 malarkey. Ezri Konsa was firmly a right back, and the distances between Diego and Pau, as you guys will see on screen, will show that we played, as I say, a bit of a lopsided back 4, which is extremely normal for Unai Emery. I thought that was a really good piece of a really good tactical decision, I think, mate, just to get Cashy up. I think in this game you need legs. I did say actually in the preview, didn't I, that I felt that Cashy would probably get rested during this game because I felt like he covered so much ground against Hibs, so much ground against Everton. He looked really tired, specifically against Everton as well. But it proved to be quite the tactical tweak, didn't it, mate? And I guess we have to give Cash his flowers because I think people forget he was a winger come 10 when he was coming through the ranks at Nottingham Forest. And I believe this is the first time he's ever scored a brace in his career. So shout out to you, Matty. What a performance you've just put in there, mate.
Yeah, he was excellent. He was absolutely excellent. He's got this amazing tendency, doesn't he? Like, Matty Cash is really good at crashing the box and making low runs and getting onto the end of crosses. We've seen him do this a couple of times, actually, for Villa, and just did it impeccably today. I mean, generally, I think both of the boys on that right-hand side deserve their flowers because I thought Konsa nailed that centre-back come right-back role that is so typical of Unai Emery systems. I thought he nailed it. He did it absolutely perfectly. And to be honest with you, maybe it's starting to appease the kind of lack of depth at right back, given that, Konsa could do that role. And that's kind of what Callum Chambers has been for most of his career, isn't it? A kind of centre-back come right back, and no one really knows exactly where he's best. And it looks like that might be a role that's really well suited for him, perhaps in the Conference League and in games like that. I dare say next week it might be a good chance to give that a run out. But no, Matty Cash was absolutely excellent. And I mean, his performance going forward was just absurd. He had 6 shots in this game, which is like absolutely incredible. 3 on target, had a really nice passing accuracy given the kind of areas that he was operating in at 82.9%. 56 touches. He actually scored his goals in the first half, the brace, with just 29 touches. So that's like an Erling Haaland-esque touches to goal ratio. But yeah, he was just absolutely excellent. And I have more love for Matty Cash than most. I think that a lot of Villa fans have kind of been seeing Matty Cash as the kind of, not the weak link, I think that's harsh, but in terms of the kind of pecking order and how it looks in terms of finding replacements for players and perhaps looking for upgrades in certain positions. I think a lot of people have earmarked Matty Cash as the next spot where he's due that kind of Moreno from Digne transition that we saw last January. And I've kind of had a bit more patience with him than I think a lot of people have. I think that he's not the finished product, but I think he does offer so much when in the right role. And he's been so restricted generally under Unai. You know, we've seen him play games where he kind of barely crosses the halfway line to allow, as you said, for that tilted back four that more often than not it's been Moreno pushing down the left wing. We saw it in the Brighton game, particularly at the end of last season, where we're being quite amazed by how little offensive work Matty Cash was allowed to do to allow Moreno to be that guy that bummed forward. So for him to really flick the switch and be the guy that's playing further up the field and he's crashing the box, getting onto the end of these crosses, there's a real nice versatility there, and I thought he was amazing today, mate.
No, he really was, mate. He really was. I want to give a shout out to Boober as well. I thought he was brilliant. He had 91.1% pass accuracy. Absolutely great. Made 51 successful passes out of his total 56. And right up there as well with successful passes was Diego Carlos as well, mate. Again, I thought he looked really comfortable. I think there was one or two instances where he did give the ball away a little bit lackadaisically, but in general, all-round play, really solid. Made 50 successful passes. Only came out with a 75.8% pass accuracy though, as there were a few wayward passes, but I thought he was really good. And just like, it's the fact he's probably played like what, 3, 4, 5, no more than 5 games in the Premier League or in English football just in general. After the injury, for him to come in, hit the ground running as he did, I didn't really have any doubts anyway. If you guys cast your mind back to last summer, when I hopped on the transfer announcement, and it's just 5 minutes of me just being really giddy because this came out of absolutely nowhere. This is the player that we signed. This is the player that me 12 months ago was like losing my mind over the fact we sort of announced this guy out of nowhere, because he's so good. I mean, he was linked with Manchester City, mate, at one point before he made his move to Aston Villa. So that should tell you everything you need to know. I thought he was really good. And like, it's just really encouraging that we can dominate a game like this where we sort of come away from home. I think the possession stats read that we had, I believe it was like 48%, 43% possession, despite not actually having the large share of the ball. It felt like we really controlled this game throughout long periods. And as I say, we just looked really assured on the ball when we had it. So, as I say, to come up, obviously we had our European night on Thursday to go away from home and to win pretty convincingly as well. We'll touch on the Burnley goal in a minute, I'm sure, mate. But to win in that manner is just, it's all you can ask for, really. This is why you go and appoint Unai Emery, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, it's his kind of style of football is written all over this game, in that, you know, despite being, I feel like there's a kind of stereotype around Spanish managers that they're all very possession hungry and they buy into the kind of slow build up that attempts to bait the press and everything like that, and like is so adept at breaking down low blocks. And Unai's a kind of real switch from that, in that it's quite direct football, and it's not direct in terms of long balls, but the objective is to get it to those forward players as fast as you can once you've kind of gotten through various layers of the press and through different like stages of midfield. It's about getting the full ball forward as quickly as we can to those players, and then you get those kind of trifecta of players behind Watkins, where you've got Diaby kind of dropping in and playing almost as a second striker, with Ali holding the ball up for the two wide guys. I mean, Cash was a perfect example of that today. Guinea's been really good as well. I thought was impressive again today. And that kind of style of football is not only suited generally quite well to away games, and I say that despite obviously we've come off the back of 2 really good wins in away games, but prior to this, I mentioned this in the preview, our away form hadn't actually been that great. I think we'd gone, if you include the back end of last season, which is always a kind of slight caveat, it's last 6 games or something like that on the road, we hadn't come away with a win. There's obviously various draws in there and everything like that. So this was long overdue, and that's obviously in terms of Premier League games, because I'm aware that we weren't on the road against Hibs. But those two games, whilst on paper, you kind of look at that and think, yeah, Villa should be getting points there. Both of them, we kind of recognised unanimously as a bit of a banana skin if Villa didn't come at them in completely the right way. This game, we both kind of said for Burnley how important it was for them, given that they didn't get to play last weekend. They've already had their kind of home opener, which was a bit of a write-off against Man City. I imagine all Burnley fans kind of saw this game as where their season started, right? This is it. This is a game where we've got a shot where we can play at home and really get off the road. But we never really gave them that chance, to be honest with you. It was only really once they got that goal at the start of the second half and the kind of 10 or 15 minute period that followed until we went and got the third that I felt that Burnley really had a shot. We looked a little bit wobbly in places, but that was the only real period in the game where I felt we came under any kind of sustained pressure. And that's the kind of biggest thing, that the biggest credit out of this really is that this was a very comfortable win on the whole. And it was only really that spell where it gave me any kind of doubt, to be honest with you.
I mean, how often, mate, do you go away from home, you leave having 16 shots on target, 12 of which have come from inside the box? That's almost unheard of, regardless of who you are and who you're playing. Only really that's kind of Man City and Liverpool numbers, really. Anyone else in the league would be hard pressed to go to Turf Moor and get 12 shots off from inside the box. Just goes to show, as you say, mate, how Unai wants to play. It's direct, it's quick, and we created plenty of chances today. I think as well, like, we spoke before the goal and we were like, this is a Robin Olsen appreciation podcast. Didn't cover himself in too much glory for the goal. My biggest complaint for the goal, and again, it's something that exactly that we highlighted in the preview, mate, and we have to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's new to the league, but Pau Torres, that was borderline pathetic how you went to attack that ball, and man, that was absolutely pathetic. I feel like when that ball was coming in, even he's 6'3", man, he should know how to use his body. And coming into the Premier League, obviously it's physical, and again, giving him the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, like, if that's Diego, the guy that the Taylor just bounces straight off him, doesn't he, mate? And it's not even a question. But he's obviously a very different build to Diego is Pau. But yeah, that was just a really frustrating goal to concede given the circumstances. But in a game like today, where obviously we've scored 3 goals, we've left with all 3 points, you'd rather him make that mistake away at Burnley rather than in a game maybe. I mean, we've got Liverpool next. You can imagine that could potentially be a close game given how well we're playing. You'd rather him make that mistake today than next week, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that's the kind of player that Torres is. We kind of spoke in the preview, didn't we, about taking the rough with the smooth with Pau, and I thought his distribution was fantastic, as it kind of always is today. But that kind of aggressive front-footed defender that kind of puts his body on the line and is more physical in those situations. I'm not sure that we may, but like this is what we're kind of talking about, and this is what we mentioned so much when we signed him, is that he isn't that kind of physical defender. I think, last season he was one of, if not the lowest ranked defender in La Liga for headers won and for interceptions. So he's really not kind of front-footed like that, and it's gonna cause, like, people will target him in that way, but it's all about contributing to a net positive, which I think generally he did today. 42 successful passes out of 45, 52 touches, 4 out of his 6 long balls connected. His ground duels won 3 out of the 4 and lost an aerial duel, which I wouldn't be surprised is that incident that you're talking about for the goal. Lost possession 3 times, was fouled once, 1 successful dribble out of 1. And so it's all about, whilst the passes, when we're talking about this, you're never going to see him sort of landing on the assist tally or anything like that. But if you kind of go back to the goals that we've scored, we are going to see on so many instances this season, Pau Torres being involved. He may well be the first pass out of the back line into midfield, and that moves end up becoming a goal. And that's what his role sort of in this team is. I think we might sort of see a few games like this, I dare say, this season, where Villa do win by a few goals, and we do concede one because we're not quite as aggressive and front-footed at the back as we might like. But that's the kind of situation that we're trying to create, and football is about outscoring the other team ultimately. And so, yeah, I think as long as I keep kind of coming back to this term net positive, I think for as long as Pau Torres remains as that, he very much deserves a place in this team. But yeah, there is a risk, as we both said, where, if one of these passes doesn't quite connect, or as we kind of saw today, he's not quite as aggressive as we might like, it is going to kind of raise eyebrows. But this is the profile that Unai wanted, Monchi wanted, that the club were all aligned on. We kind of all heard that, Pau was Unai's number one target since walking through the door at Villa. And there's clearly method in the madness, I would say.
Absolutely, mate. And again, that, as you said, as you rightly pointed out, mate, fantastic distribution. Just wanted to add to that as well. Made 14 passes in the opposition half, with 85.7% of them being accurate as well. So that obviously, as you say, contributes to the team fantastically. That will be a bit of a welcome to the league moment, but in a bad way, which he can only learn from. So yeah, and I can't see Unai letting that kind of thing keep popping up in terms of getting caught out like that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you rightfully point out, mate. The contribution that he makes is brilliant. And speaking about coming in and making a brilliant contribution, is Musa Diaby. This guy was worth his weight in gold. I can't remember. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't remember the last time we had someone at Villa who takes as many first-time shots as Musa. And, I mean, they've been coming off brilliantly, obviously. Almost scored another screamer identical to the one from his first game against Newcastle in the Everton game last week. And today, I mean, the way he strikes that ball first time, I think James Trafford is a bit unlucky. I think, obviously, they were looking at the goal, weren't they? Because there was potential for Ollie either being offside or interfering with play. But if I'm being honest, I don't really think Emi would save that either. I think the way he really managed to tuck that into the far post, and it was almost shielded by 2 or 3 players. It was absolutely fantastic. And Diaby is just somebody who, every time I see him play, the more I see him play, I just get so excited watching him, mate. He's a real live wire. He's hit the ground running straight away. And I say, like, somebody who takes that shot on first time, the amount of times we've seen Ollie, when confidence is down a little bit, taking 1 or 2 too many touches, guys like Leon, even Danny Ings, if we go back to last season, all culpable of doing this at times. The fact that somebody's come in and got the confidence to really hit that in his stride, literally and metaphorically, it's just fantastic, mate, isn't it? He offers so much for the team.
Yeah, there's so much that's interesting about this goal, and I was rewatching it as you were talking then, to kind of reference what we were just talking about. It's Pau Torres that makes the first pass sort of into John McGinn. John McGinn does one of those, we've kind of become so used to it, but the way that he rolls his man and wriggles away from him, he's tried to get fouled by the Burnley man. I'm not sure who he is, number 28, before playing like a really nice weighted ball out to Luca Dean. Again, another assist for him, absolutely massive. What a purple patch he's hitting right now. But what I kind of find interesting is that when McGinn rolls his midfielder, there's Ollie on the kind of running on the shoulder on the last man, looking to get in behind the defence. And Diaby kind of dropped off. And when I was watching it in real time, I was a little bit confused by that, because it's Diaby that's got Ollie's no slouch, but Diaby he's rapid. I was kind of screaming, like, get along with Ollie, like, get along the top, because we saw all of those games against Hibernian where Luca Dean was kind of hitting the byline and playing balls either across the back line or over towards the far post. And I kind of saw Diaby like dropping off, and I was like, what's he doing? Like, we all know what Dean is going to do here, but Luca kind of gets his head up. Diaby just drops off the back line. It's actually really intelligent. And then when you see Dean pull that ball back, Diaby gets it, and he's kind of in so much space, connects with it really nicely, like virtually on the 18-yard line. And I don't know about you, but it just felt for forever like watching that ball trickle. I say trickle, it's like, I don't know what it was, the way it was just kind of rolling towards that far post. Like, I watch the replays now, it doesn't seem to go so slowly, maybe because I know it's going in. but in real time, it just seemed to crawl past Trafford, and then it dropped into the bottom left-hand corner. The only criticism I have of the goal is that Diaby's run away from the away fans to celebrate, but I'll give him that.
Yeah, they're all wearing claret and blue. Easily done.
Yeah.
Easily done, Musa. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, mate. Absolutely brilliant. And like, obviously we've got a big game coming up against Hibs. Lee Johnson's been sacked today. It would have been nice if we could have seen his touchline antics again in Villa Park. We all know whenever he comes, he gets a very, very warm reception from the Villa fans. So yeah, I mean, obviously that adds an interesting dynamic to the game. I know we're 5-0 up, but I hope there will be a sort of a ruthlessness, a professional performance put in, no mercy spared. I feel like in them kind of games, you field a weakened 11, you take your foot off the gas, you keep the ball. I just find that a bit disrespectful. Like, just go for it. Like, we want to win the game. I know it's all sealed up already. Knock on wood, barring a miracle from Hibs. But you want to see us really put them to the swords. Well, I do anyway. That's just my opinion. That's what I think about it. Another 5-0 win would be very nice at Villa Park. But we'll be back probably tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, to preview that game. Who's your man of the match, mate? Who's your player of the match? Final thoughts just before we round off, because I thought there were so many players who were absolutely brilliant, but just wondering who you thought was the sort of the best of the bunch.
That's a really good question, actually. Obviously, I'm naturally going to have to give that to Matty Cash, because after going the whole of the 2022-23 season without a goal, to get two in such quick fire fashion, and just seeing that it's actually Villa's fastest brace in an away Premier League game since Darren Bent against Arsenal all the way back in 2011. So naturally, he's going to kind of get my plaudits there. But yeah, I thought Booba was really good. And it's a shame, actually, that Olsen kind of conceded that goal. Maybe he can do a little bit more, because I actually thought that he had a really good first half, and I thought his distribution in all of the games that we've kind of seen, I still think in terms of shot stopping, there's room for improvement. But I think his distribution has notably gotten better. And I think he kind of deserves a little bit of praise for that. But yeah, I think it's hard to look past Matty, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he was brilliant, mate. He was brilliant. And yeah, I do feel like we have to give him specifically the respect, because I think a lot of people, myself included, I don't really see him as an Unai Emery right back, but Unai's clearly found a place for him in this team, and he's quite unique really with what he offers. So very good, very happy with Matty. Guys, let us know your thoughts on this performance in the comment section down below as well. If you hit the link tree in the description, there's a link to Dan's fundraiser. He's running 100 miles over the next month to raise money for the Villa Foundation. So anybody who donates to that would be greatly appreciated. There's also a link to our FPL mini league. Winner of that at the end of the season will win a shirt. So you're going to want to make sure you're in that. Pretty good day if you had Matty Cash in FPL, mate. I'm not sure how many people do. I think you do. You have Matty Cash,
mate,
right?
I don't. I pulled a wild card. Bro, I know.
Bro.
Kind of wish I did.
But he was in your team last week.
He wasn't, but
Okay.
Alex Goodall, who you'll know, did have him, and he got a haul today of 14 points. But that was before you kind of get bonus points and everything like that land. So I guess it's going to be about 16, 17, which is pretty remarkable.
Mate, wow. Fortune favours the bold. Shout out to Alex. But yeah, guys, say get at that. Get at the mini league. As well, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, make sure you're following. Make sure you leave a 5-star review. Make sure you share it with your friends as well. And if you're listening on YouTube and you're not already, subscribe. That's what you're doing. Love the Villa.